you? Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. I am Rabbi Scott White, back again after last Friday, unexpectedly. Nice to be here, but unfortunately made possible because Rabbi Lundy has been down with COVID this past week. So he turned to his old friend here, and here we are again. So we're going to make a nice service for everybody tonight. And we will begin on page 2 in our prayer books with a rendition of Lecha Dodi, the song that welcomes the symbolic bride of the Sabbath who enters the room as we sing and we feel a palpable change in the atmosphere as the Sabbath descends into our midst.
La 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 Lecha Dodi, la 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 Likrat Kala. La 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 la, Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad, Hishmiyanu el hamiuchad, Adonai echad, U'shemo echad, L'shem hu tiferet v'litila. Lai 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 la 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 Lecha Dodi, la 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 Likrat Kala, la 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Likrat Shabbat lechu v'nelcha, ki mikol haberacha, merosh mikedem nesucha, sof ma'aseh v'machshava tchila. Lai 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 la 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 Lecha Dodi, la 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 Likrat Kala, la 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 Pnei Shabbat nekabela, Hitori Kiva orech kumiori, uri shir daveri kevod Adonai alayich nigla. Shalom, Ateret Balad, Gam B'Simcha Uv'Tola, Tochem עם סגולה בואי חלה בואי חלה לי 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 לכבודי לי 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 לקראת כלה לי 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 פני שבת
Wonderful, thank you. We are going to kindle the Shabbat lights, and I'd like to invite the first person to volunteer to come up and be the candle lighter. No volunteers? You're up. All right. We'll be on page 7, and we'll start with the responsive reading.
Come, let us welcome Shabbat. May its radiance warm our hearts as we kindle these tapers.
Light is the symbol of God's presence in our lives. The Eternal One is our light and our salvation.
Light is the symbol of the holiness within each of us. The human spirit is the light of God.
Light is the symbol of the Torah's teachings, for the commandment is a lamp and the Torah is a light.
Light is the symbol of Israel's mission, as it is written, I have made you a covenant people to serve as a light to the nations.
Therefore, in the spirit of our ancient tradition that hallows and guides Israel in all lands and all ages, we kindle the lights of Shabbat.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat, lehadlik ner,
We praise our eternal God, creator of the universe, who hallows our lives through laws and ethical teachings. We are mindful of these timeless values as we have kindled these lights of Shabbat.
May God bless us with Shabbat joy. May God bless us with Shabbat holiness. May God bless us with Shabbat peace. Amen.
Thank you. Shabbat shalom. Please turn to page 78, and if you are able to rise for Baruch Hu, we ask you to please do so.
Lai la lai 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 lai
Please be seated. I'll be continuing on the top of 79. You are our God, the source from which life and all its blessings flow. Wherever we turn our eyes, we behold signs of your goodness and grace. The fullness of your power is disclosed to us in the guidance of our people, in your constant shaping of human destiny, and in the wondrous works of creation. Your guiding spirit is present in all your works. The harmony and grandeur of nature speak to us of you, of your infinite might and majesty. And now if you'll turn to page 80, let's continue together at the top of the page. Infinite is your power, even so is your love. It may be seen through the history of our people Israel, through laws and ethical precepts, through statutes and ordinances. You have led us in the ways of righteousness and brought us to the light of truth. Therefore, in our lying down and rising up, we will meditate on the Torah's teachings, finding within it the inspiration and guidance for our daily lives. May your love never depart from our hearts. We praise you, God. You have revealed your love through our people, Israel. Now we continue with Shema, our creedal statements of God's oneness and unity on the facing page 81.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto, Le'olam, Le'olam Va'ed. You shall love the eternal God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And these words which I command you this day shall be upon your heart. You shall teach them diligently to your children, and shall speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, when you rise up. You shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and they shall be a symbol before your eyes. You shall write them on the doorposts of your house and on your gates. You may remember and do all of my commandments, and be holy, holy to your God.
Please turn to 84. On this page, we will begin responsively at the top half, which will lead us into the Michamocha in the middle of the page and beyond. 84. Trust in the Eternal One with all your heart, and do not rely on your own limited understanding.
Remember God's commandments and do them, that you should not follow only your own heart and your own eyes.
Time and again, God has redeemed us from the hand of oppressors and revived our spirits when our own strength failed us.
God's works and wonders surpass our understanding. God's gifts and blessings are without number.
We rejoice in God's guiding power. We praise and give thanks to the Eternal One.
Lay, 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 lay. Okay, I am לפני משה, ואליענו ואמרו, ואליענו ואמרו, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, אדוני ימלוך Olam Vaed. Mi chamocha ba'alim Adonai, mi chamocha nehedar b'kodesh, nora tehilloto sefer, nora tehilloto sefer.
Just want to say one quick thing to introduce the musical setting of the Sham Room, which contains a really interesting and important concept of the Sabbath being a sign of the covenant between the people of Israel and God. Okay? So here's a question for you. Okay? If the Sabbath is a sign of the covenant, right? And the covenant applies on Shabbat, then the covenant would apply on the 6 other days of the week that are not Shabbat. And so what serves as the sign of the covenant since the 6 other days are not Shabbat? Anybody know what serves as the sign of the covenant? Tefillin. Okay? That's one of the reasons why we don't wear it on Shabbat, because we don't need, or holidays, we don't need to have that sign. It would be redundant because the Shabbat and the holiday is already the sign. And that's one of the themes of Vishamru, is that the Sabbath is the sign of the covenant. So it's not only about our resting, it's not only about thinking about the creation of the world, but it also, feeling the Sabbath is also about that direct relationship that we have on an individual basis and as the community of the Jewish people and those who are interested in Judaism as well, talking about that relationship between us and the Almighty. So, Vishamru on page 85.
V'sham eruv b'nei Yisrael et HaShabbat, et HaShabbat la'asud et HaShabbat l'dorotam b'nei olam b'nei olam. B'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. B'nei uvein b'nei Yisrael, oti le'olam. Ki sheshet yamim asa Adonai et hashamayim v'et haaretz, u'bayom hashvi'i Shabbat, Shabbat v'yinafar.
Please turn to 86 as we find a reading in the English at the top, and I invite you to join together with me. Grant, O God, that we may lie down in peace and rise up again to life. Spread over us the shelter of your peace. Guide us with wise counsel. Be as a shield about us, fortifying us against hatred and war, against pestilence and sorrow. Curb within us the inclination to do evil, and comfort us within the embrace of your life.
Guide our going out and coming into life.
And peace from this time forth and forever. We praise you, God, for shelter us.
And all who dwell on earth.
In the Hebrew setting now of Hashkivenu. Are we doing Hashkivenu? Yes, we were still on page 86. We'll now hear the Hebrew version with music of what we have just recited in English.
Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, L'shalom, L'shalom, Hashkivenu, Hashkivenu, Adonai, Eloheinu, L'shalom, Adonai, Eloheinu, L'shalom.
On that self-same page, across the way, actually, on 87, we have the introduction to the Amida, the Adonai Sfatai, as we prepare for the central prayer by asking the Almighty to loosen up our spirits so that we can articulate our deepest feelings about who we are, who we aspire to be, and what it means to us to have this wonderful Jewish heritage that we have to guide our lives. So we're at the top of 87, and this will be in Hebrew, and then we'll continue after that as we'll begin working our way into the Amida on top of 88.
Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Adonai Sfatai Tiftach, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha, Ufi Yagid Tehilatecha.
And now, if you're able, I'll ask the congregation to stand, as the name of this prayer is the Amida, which means the standing prayer. And we are going to continue with the Avot section on the middle of page 88. Excuse me, middle of 87.
Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu v'Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Leah, Elohei Rachel, Ha'el Hagadol Hagibor v'Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Konei Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot v'Imachot, U'Mevii Geula Libnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo v'Yahava, Melech Uzer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham v'Izratam.
And now the congregation may be seated, and we have reached page 88. For some reason, I've been trying to get there. And we're at the top. I ask you to join with me. Infinite is your power, O God. Great is your gift of life. In loving kindness, you sustain the world. Through the endless flow of your blessings, you preserve all creation. You uphold the following and heal the sick, free the captive, and keep faith with your people in death as in life. Who is like unto you, life and death. Let's continue responsively on the facing page from the top. For the expanding grandeur of creation, worlds known and unknown, galaxies beyond galaxies, filling us with awe and wonder.
For this fragile planet Earth, its times and tides, its sunsets and seasons.
For the joy of human life, its wonders and surprises, its hopes and achievements.
For human community, our common past and future hopes, our oneness transcending all separation, our capacity to work for peace and justice in the midst of hostility and oppression.
For for high aspirations and noble causes, for faith without fanaticism, for understanding of views not shared.
For all who labor and suffer for a fairer world, who risk their personal well-being so that others might live in dignity and freedom.
For human liberties and sacred rights, for opportunities to change and grow, to affirm and choose.
We pray that we may live not by our fears, but by our hopes, not by our words, but by our deeds. Blessed are you, eternal one, to whom all thanks are due.
Please turn to 90, and I'll read the top section, and the congregation will respond in the italics at the bottom. May we then be just and great-hearted in our dealings with one another, sharing the fruits of our common labor, acknowledging that we are but stewards of whatever we possess. Help us to be among those who give generously of themselves that others may not hunger, who dare to be bearers of light in the dark loneliness of stricken lives, who struggle and even bleed for the triumph of justice for all people. So shall we be partners in the repair of our world, for that has been our vision and goal throughout the ages.
Our God and God of all ages, grant that our worship on this Shabbat may be acceptable to you. Sanctify us through your commandments, that the serenity of Shabbat may enter our lives. Teach us to be satisfied with the gifts of your goodness and grateful to rejoice in all that you bestow. Purify our hearts that we may serve you in truth. Inspire us to preserve Shabbat as Israel's heritage from generation to generation. May it bring rest and joy, peace and comfort to the dwellings of our people, and that through it you may be revered throughout the world. We praise our God who sanctifies Shabbat.
Please turn the page over to 92 and continue with me. We gratefully acknowledge that the eternal God is our creator and preserver, the rock of our life, the shield of our help. We thank God and sing praises for the gift of life itself, for our souls that are ever in God's keeping, for the signs of our Creator's presence that we encounter every day, and for God's wondrous gifts at all times, morning, noon, and night. Truly our blessings are without end, and God's loving kindness never ceases. Therefore, we forever put our trust in the Eternal One. Now, before we conclude the Amida prayer, we are going to say a prayer of healing for those who are infirmed physically, emotionally, spiritually. Please turn back to page 10. And before we say the Mishaberach and sing the Mishaberach, I'd like to invite anyone here in the room who would like to share a name or names of individuals who are in need of this healing prayer right now.
Jason Hartford.
Natasha Stevens.
Keeping them in mind and all those who are suffering the aftermath of hurricanes and fires and the various environmental disasters that seem to be visiting so many parts of our American community. We keep all of these folks in mind, and we say that prayer invites God's presence to lift our spirits and allows the blessing and gift of hope to prevail in our lives. It may not bring water, prayer, to parched fields or mend a broken bridge or rebuild a ruined city, but it can water an arid soul and mend a broken heart and rebuild a weakened will. So we'll continue with our musical prayer in earnest for all those who are in need to feel better and get better.
Mishaberach Avotenu Mikor HaBracha May the source of strength, who bless the ones before us, help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say Amen. Mishaberach Imotenu with refuah shlema, the renewal of body, the renewal of spirit, and let us say Amen.
Page 94 at the bottom in Hebrew.
יהודרצון אמרפי, יהודרצון אמרפי, והגיון ליבי לפניך, אדוני צורי וגואלי. Oh, may the words of my mouth, the meditation of my heart be acceptable before you, eternal God, my rock and my redeemer. Oh, say shalom bimroma, hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu, ve'al kol Yisrael, ve'imru, ve'imru, amen.
That's just such great music. I just love it. I really do. Thank you. And wonderfully performed and offered. Thank you so much. And all of you for singing and joining in. And Shabbat Shalom. So I have a question for you. Have you heard the one about the rabbi and the bus driver? All right, I'll tell you. So they both meet their maker on the same day, within minutes of each other, and so therefore, they are next to each other in the single file line of people whose time has come and who are going to go before the judge and hear what's the next step for them. The bus driver is in front of the rabbi, and his turn arrives, and he steps forward 2 or 3 steps to hear what his immediate fate will be. And the rabbi who's next in line can hear everything that's going on. And it gets to a few words from the Almighty, and he praises the bus driver and says, you can go right through that door over there, straight to heaven. The rabbi's feeling pretty confident, and he has his time, and if the judge, great judge, says a few words, and he says, before you go through the door to go to heaven, I want you to spend a week by going through that middle door. A little bit of purgatory for you before you go to heaven. And the rabbi protests. He says, what? I'm a rabbi. I'm like godly. I've been promoting you for my whole career. And the lowly bus driver goes straight to heaven while I have to go to purgatory for a few days? What's the deal, God? And God turns to him and he says, it's really very simple. While you were giving sermons, people were sleeping. While the bus driver was driving, people were praying. So imagine you're on a bus, one side here, the seats, okay? But it's not the front row, okay? And the driver is up here. And when you get on the bus, you see the driver and you see the rows, but on each side, before the rows that face forward, there is seating for about 3 people that faces in. And same thing on the other side, right? So in Israel, when you get on the public bus, which I did many times over the 3 years that I studied there, college and seminary, right? You get in, and in these 3 seats over here, and over here, okay, on the wall behind the seats, on each space there are the same, each side, there are the same 3 Hebrew words. Mipnei, Seva, Takum. Mipnei seva takum, which means, and it's right out of the Torah, it's a commandment, thou shalt rise before the aged. Okay? And so in Israel, riding public buses, you will often see that somebody who comes in and sits down, a younger person, and is riding the bus, and there's a stop, and the older people come on. The younger person knows. It's kind of the culture. You get up and move to the back of the bus so that the person also works with women who are expecting, obviously, and so forth. Okay? So there's kind of a cultural clue or cue on the buses. Hebrew is the language. People see that, and it's become part of the culture there. And it's a very beautiful thing that, as far as I could tell from my personal experience, it seemed to be more observed by far than not. Okay, for all the reputation of Israelis being kind of, crusty on the outside and soft on the inside, there are certain exceptions to the rule where Israelis can be very tender even on the outside. And when it comes to social citizens on the bus, senior citizens on the bus, that's the purpose of the function of those benches. It's nice to see in action. And so I'm going to go back 4 years from the time that I retired at age 62, right? And say since that time, I've been officially a seva, right? Mipnei seva takum. Seva is the term in those 3 words for an older person. By the way, what seva literally means is fulfilled, right? Whether you want to look at it in terms of like chronology, you've fulfilled a large part of your life, or you're fulfilled because you've had so many experiences that have made you feel fulfilled. Okay, or maybe you're full of knowledge, but I'm going to get there in a moment. Okay, so in the 4 years that I've experienced living at this stage of life, I have found, for the most part, that people are deferential. I've been getting called sir by younger people. Okay, I occasionally get doors held open for me. It's really a very nice thing. Okay, I mean, one of the bonuses of getting to be an old codger, okay, is that the younger folks, right? It's part of our culture. It started with the Bible and maybe even before that. And just like in Israel, it's penetrated and people know. And so we get the benefit of that being part of our civilization, that value and that teaching. But now I want to tell you an anecdote or two to say that at least lately, for me, I've had a couple of troubling experiences where I thought maybe it was an exception to the rule, or maybe it was a reflection of something, going on in our society. It's hard to draw broad conclusions from narrow anecdotes, but I want to share the experience with you. And the first one was 2 weeks ago. Sylvia, my wife and I were out of town at a wedding. The Friday evening welcome dinner, or Friday afternoon welcome dinner, okay, was held in a wonderful spot with a beautiful meal served. And when the meal was over, the speeches began. And that's when I decided to go to the ice cream truck, which was parked right by the venue as part of the whole deal, okay? And so you can imagine in your mind, one of those regular trucks, okay, with the window, you get in line, and the way this works is when you're 2 or 3 spots away from being right at the front of the line, you hand the clerk, a young man or a young woman, I think it was a couple, had their truck and all the ice cream they were serving. You fill out the card in advance and you hand it to them. Do you want a cone or a cup? Do you want chocolate or vanilla? And then 5 or 6 toppings that you can check off, right? So I'm at the back of the line, and the people in front of me, and there are only a few, maybe 5 or 6, okay, after I've gotten in line. So it's going to go pretty fast. I really need my ice cream. And of course, I want to get back and hear the speeches about, the people who are getting married. So I get my card, I fill it out. And as I'm just about, to hit pay dirt, and the 2 young people in front of me are handing in their card, a third one comes along, a member of the staff, grabs a card, fills it out, sticks it in the hand of one of the people in front of me and says, "Can you get for me too?" Like I'm not even there. Well, I let it go. I reported this to my wife afterward. It was kind of an unfortunate experience, okay? I know with all my white hair, and maybe I'm a little stooped, and maybe they saw me walking a little bent. Okay, so they probably thought it's very safe to cut in front of this guy. He won't even notice. He's just so old and mind is foggy. I said to Sylvia, it's probably just a one-off. Until Thursday, which is yesterday, I'm waiting at one of the public swimming pools, which will now open at 4 o'clock. And again, I'm standing in line at the back of the line, and the same thing happens to me, right? There's a couple of young people in front of me, and here come two more, and like I'm not even there, just get right in front of me. What would you do? I wanted to say something because the 4 people who were involved, 2 of them were what I would guess would be maybe 13 or 14-year-old teenage girls that had braces. And the 2 people, older people who were with them, were not old enough to be a parent, I could tell. I wanted to say, man, it's not a very good example for these young people that you've just cut right in front of me like this. But instead of that, when the line opened up, I just went around and got in front of all 4. Okay. But the point that I want to make is this. I'm not trying to play the victim. I think both were a one-off, sort of a serendipitous instance of the unusual thing happening twice, because the usual experience for me is, as I said, people are deferential, okay? But I sometimes worry, particularly when I read about how what used to be kind of a creeping secularization in our society has become a gallop. Have you been reading about how we're becoming unchurched in this country, or unsynagogued or unmosqued? And I wonder whether or not those time-honored biblical values, like those Hebrew words on the bus, that have penetrated so deeply into social consciousness and practice, because Israel is like a synagogue. The whole country is kind of like a synagogue. You have so many instances, I won't tell you others, but there are in the public sphere where you see biblical words and phrases that are very familiar to Israelis, even if they're secular, because it's part of the society. I wonder whether we are going to suffer from this trend in our society of the pews continuing to empty out and people not being exposed to this kind of message that we teach about in our churches, in our synagogues, in our mosques. The tragedy will be double if that's the case. And I'm not saying that it is. I'm just concerned that it might be trending that way based upon my experience. Again, I still want to classify this as outliers and be optimistic. But it's more than just a matter of showing respect and regard for our senior citizens. It's that we old folks have a lot to offer to everybody else by virtue of our experience and our wisdom. And I think that's the main message that the Torah is giving when it says, thou shalt rise before the aged, okay? It's not so much about their physical needs. It's not so much about giving them and according them respect as it is recognizing the value added to the community by virtue of wisdom and experience that we older folks have to offer. Shabbat shalom. We will now turn to page 368 for the adoration, as I will open the ark and we will continue with our beautiful music. Please stand.
Let us adore the ever-living God. We offer praise unto you. You spread out the heavens and establish the earth. Your glory is revealed in the heavens above, and your greatness is manifest throughout the world. You are our God, there is none else. לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש הקדוש ברוך הוא.
Let us continue on the top of 369. May the time not be distant, O God, when you shall be worshipped throughout the earth, when unbelief shall disappear and error be no more. Fervently we pray that the day may come when all people shall be guided by your teachings. Corruption and evil shall give way to purity and goodness. Superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. Then all who dwell on earth shall know that to you alone every knee shall bend and every voice give praise. May all created in your image recognize that we are brothers and sisters, so that one in spirit and one in harmony, we may be forever united with you. And the word of your ancient prophet fulfilled. And on that day the eternal shall be one, and God's name shall be one.
ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד. ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, אדוני אחד, ושמו אחד.
Please be seated. On this date of September 1st, I want to share with you the names of those no longer with us, our dearly departed, whose yortsites are recognized at this juncture of the calendar. Patricia Lang Donnelly, Ronald Greenbaum, Ruth Hurwitz, Leonard Levinson, Aaron Levitt, Helen Minitov, John Meyer, Stan Rostov, Rose Sizo, Ruben Tizes. Are there any other yortsites that are being observed today that you would like to share? Our mourner's cottage may be found on page 375. Our thoughts now turn to those who have departed this earth, our loved ones, those whom our friends and neighbors have lost, the martyrs of our people, the 6 million who perished in the Shoah, and those of every race, nation, and faith whose lives have been a blessing to humanity. The departed whom we now remember have entered into the peace of life eternal. They still live on earth in the acts of goodness they performed and in the hearts of those who cherish their memory. May the beauty of their lives abide among us as a loving benediction. Those able to rise, please do so as we share together in the mourner's Kaddish. Yit Kadal v'yit Kadash me Rabbi, be'alma divra chirutei v'yamlik malkutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol Beit Yisrael, ba'agala v'zman kariv v'imru, amen. Yehesh me Rabba Barach le'olam l'omel mayah. Yibarach v'yishtabach v'yipa'ar v'yitramam v'yinaseh v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shmei dekudesha brichu le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tush bechata v'nechemata na miram mi'alma mimramein Yehei shlama rabba min shmaya v'ha'im aleinu v'yal kol Yisrael v'imramein Oseh shalom mimramav v'yaseh shalom Aleinu, v'yal kol Yisrael, v'yimaru. Amen. Please have a seat. We want to thank these individuals and families for beautifying the sanctuary with our Sabbath flowers. Roger Hurwitz has provided in memory of Ruth Hurwitz. The Levitt and Davidson families in memory of Aaron Levitt. Jay and Simi, I hope I said it right, Simi. Menitov, 0 for 2, in memory of Helen Menitov, and Irv Belzer and Sue McCord Belzer in memory of Stam Rostov. We thank all of these families for the beautiful flowers in this lovely space. And we want to share some information with you that Slichot will be held next Saturday evening at Bnei Yehuda, beginning with a reception, dessert reception at 8 p.m., Havdalah then at 8:50, and at 9 o'clock the program will begin, entitled The Breath of Life, a Jewish Mindfulness Practice of Teshuvah, led by Rabbi Josh Fagelson, who is the president and CEO of the Institute for Jewish Spirituality, followed by the Slichot service at 10:10, led by area clergy and musical leadership team of soloists from various congregations in our community. Any other announcements or information that folks would like to share? I want to say I look forward to greeting everybody at Kiddush, which will follow our final hymn this evening. You'll find that on page 437 at the bottom. Shabbat Shalom.
Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Ve'al Kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Salam Aleinu ve'al kol ha'olam, Salam Shalom. Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam. Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu, Orevo Shalom Aleinu ve'al kulam.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
As always.
Our pleasure. Well, when I can hear it and actually play it. That helps.
You guys are so great.
You are so nice.
I'm telling you. You
Well, it's
guys
a
are
little-
so great. I mean,
You make us feel very
you guys are wonderful.
You have the best grandpa. Good grandpa.
Aren't they great?
You better say yes, or you're gonna be a big trouble.